In this episode, Greg Perrucci of Perrucci Family Vineyards, one of their owner and winemakers, talks with me about the 3 generations involvement with the winery and their very special winemaking philosophy. Also, he will talk to us about his 5 gold medal winning wines from the 2022 San Francisco Wine Competition and some very special wine pairings that he suggests. This is going to be fun. I think you'll enjoy the show. Wine with Bill starts now. Welcome to Wine with Bill, and I'm Bill. Today we have a very special guest with us, and you are?
Greg Perrucci.
And what do you do, Greg?
I am partner and winemaker at Perrucci Family Vineyards in Los Gatos.
And you are located where?
15050 Kennedy Road.
And you've got some elevation?
Yes, we do. It's very steep hillsides.
And you're considered, from what I understand, as part of the Santa Cruz Mountains AVA?
Yes.
Good. Well, let's start off with some easy stuff, and it's stuff that's important. I like your name for your winery. I think I know why. And I visited your winery, your website, and you obviously have a lot of pride in your family.
Yes, we do.
And pride in your product, which are the wines. So tell me about what's Perrucci Family Vineyards' philosophy and how they go about getting such great results.
Well, it doesn't come easy. There's a lot of work involved. For the most part, it's the entire family. I am the second of 3 winemakers involved in the operation. My brother was the first. He developed it. I came second. And then now my nephew, who is my brother's son, graduated Cal Poly from the Wine and Vit program several years ago now, I guess. And he is the current winemaker as of 2019, 2020. And
so he's got some vintages under his belt.
He does. He has a couple. I've sort of let him have full reign. I still hover a little bit behind the scenes just to make sure that he doesn't forget where we came from and where we're going. Good.
Well, there's a lot of words out there describing winemaking, the growing of grapes, and I'm going to ask you about them, and I'm going to ask you to describe what is the style that you have. Mm-hmm. We've got sustainable, we've got organic, we've got dry farming. What's the most apt description for your practice?
I think the one word would be adaptable, and we've adapted all of those as needed and where appropriate to suit our needs and the needs of the grapes. You've seen our site, you've seen how steep it is and how much variety we have in elevation and soil composition, and nearly every vine needs a little bit different, something a little bit different. So we have to adapt the sustainability, the organic, biodynamic even. We've tried a few things like that, but it's not a one-size-fits-all.
And you have the properties as you described, you have vineyards, you have your own vineyard, and you have different varietals planted there, correct?
Correct.
What are those varietals, Greg?
We have Cabernet Sauvignon, Sangiovese, and Malbec planted on the winemaking estate. On our other properties in Los Gatos, we have Syrah, Mourvèdre, and Grenache. But also in Almaden, near the Greystone Lane area, I guess you'd call it, we have Cabernet Franc, Syrah, Petit Syrah, and Cabernet Sauvignon.
That's the equivalent of every wine store shelf, just about. You've got so many varieties, yeah. And everyone I'm sure is unique. But when you talk about your adaptive practice here, this can happen during the same week, let alone the same month. You have to kind of switch up gears.
Right. Every day it's different. We tend to break the sites into different days. We do all the Almaden vineyards 1-2 days a week. They're all individuals. They're all handled differently. And when we come back to Los Gatos for the 2-3 other days of the week, we handle all those sites differently. And even within a single site, it's handled differently.
How many years have on your property, the various varietals? Have they been in there for 20 years, 15? How long?
I believe we started planting in 1995, so probably a quarter was planted in 95, and then every year until 2005 we added a little bit more until we're at full 5 acres up on the estate there.
And I would presume that since 1995 forward, you've figured it out, so to speak, of the unique terroir that you have and why you've got Cabernet in certain zones of your property. You've got Sangiovese, you've got Merlot or whatever. You've got them all in. They're perfect spots. Is that kind of what you're trying to do?
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair statement to make. But every year, Mother Nature throws us a curveball, and the last couple of years have been the worst curveballs I've ever seen in the last 25 years of doing this.
Well, let's talk about that, because there's been a lot of challenges because of some very extraordinary things, whether it be wildfires, whether it be drought, whether it be other things. What are some of the challenges that you face also in the normal year, let alone these extraordinary things in the last decade or so?
In a normal year, it's almost routine. It's powdery mildew, a little botrytis here and there, a few bugs once in a while, white flies, leaf hoppers. They're all easily controlled if the weather cooperates. If we have an early spring like we're having right now, the bug population is going to get a jump. And it's really too early to do anything about it. We just have to live with it until we have something to work with. And in the meantime, we pray that they don't overwhelm us. But yeah, it has been an extraordinary year so far. We're only 2 months in.
Well, I've talked to you about this off record, but everybody would say, "Oh, this has got to be the downtime for the winery. The grapes are in the barrel, the wine's in the barrels. It's just it's going through that process, and it's they're not really growing yet." But you did a lot in the last few weeks, I suspect.
Yes.
What did you do? Tell our viewers and listeners what you have to do.
Well, I did take an extended vacation, but coming back from vacation, it's take inventory of everything that's going on in the vineyard. The irrigation systems need to be repaired. The trellises need to be repaired. Wires need to be tightened. Posts need to be replaced that rot. We have to look at all the equipment that we use, make sure the spray rigs are up and running, change the oil and things like that. There's a lot of maintenance going on. But right now, the most important and the most labor intense part of what we're doing is the vine pruning. And my carpal tunnel is screaming loudly right now because
you just came back from your doctor appointment. That's your over-the-counter meds.
Yeah, exactly. No, we're pruning. I think we counted one time how many cuts it was, and it's in the tens of thousands of how many times we have to cut the grapes on our various properties.
That's an important element of the wine growing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Is this a good analogy? That's kind of like the prep work you do before you paint the house, whether it's be interior or exterior, because that's really the foundation. Absolutely.
What we do in the vineyard today is going to put us on a path to harvest 6-7 months from now, and we can prune severely and limit the crop, which is sort of what we're doing right now, knowing there's not a lot of water. So we're limiting the amount of growth that we're going to accept early on. And we're looking at this knowing we're not going to get a lot of rain. So we're being preemptive and proactive and saying we're going to cut severely and make sure that we don't overdo it.
That's kind of the way it's got to go. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you mentioned irrigation. Is irrigation something that's under normal circumstances, it's not a big deal, but under the extraordinary circumstances we had, is it more relevant and more important?
It is. For our winemaking estate, we're mostly dry farmed. We lose our water by June. It's all spring water. And I believe this year we'll probably lose it in April. So the irrigation that we're doing now might only add the equivalent of 1 to 2 inches of rainfall that we would normally get. But we need to save the water for the vines that are really struggling to make sure they actually survive and not lose them due to to the drought. It won't be about getting crop. It'll be about making sure that vine is there next year and the year after. So yeah, irrigation is very important to us.
Well, that's good. Any other safeguards or things that you have to do as part of the process to make sure that your product, meaning the grape, is going to be in perfect shape when the harvest does occur?
When it comes to irrigation, there's not a lot we can do except use it as a safeguard. It's not going to change the quality of the wine very much. We try to use as little water as possible. In fact, in most cases, we don't use any. This year, especially after last year being dry, we are unsure. We really don't know what it's going to bring. So,
good to know. There's a term, and I might not have the term correct, but of thinning when, let's say, the growing and it's getting closer, to full ripeness. Explain to us what is thinning and why is it so important for the grapes?
Well, there's a couple things. There's leaf thinning, there's shoot thinning, and then there are grape cluster thinning. The leaf thinning is appropriate at different times to bring sunlight to the clusters. And it's important in the development of flavor, reduction of acid, and things like that. And you also don't want to overdo it because you'll end up with sunburned fruit, and then you'll just have raisins.
That's bad.
Yeah, that's bad. There's shoot thinning, which is sort of a wholesale stripping out of an entire cane, vertical cane that's growing. That is sort of the balance, one of the keys to balance. If we have too many shoots, we want to pull them back. We don't want to crowd the grapes. We don't want to block too much sunlight. We want to make sure there's airflow. And then later in the year, if needed, and we hope we don't need it, we will actually go in and reduce the number of clusters. But that doesn't appear to be an issue this year.
Okay. Well, good. Well, let's take a fast forward here and look at some lovely bottles of wine that you have brought. And you and I both know that they are the 5 winners from the 2022 San Francisco Chronicle Wine Competition, which is a blind tasting, et cetera, et cetera. And we have 3 double gold winners here: the 2018 Malbec, 2019 Regan Vineyard Merlot, the 2018 Santa Cruz Mountains Sangiovese, and then we have a gold medal for the 2017 Santa Cruz Mountains Cabernet Sauvignon, and the silver medal 2020 Santa Cruz Mountains Rosato of Sangiovese, which is very unusual. Rosato in Spanish is Rosado, in English it's Rosé, but to have Sangiovese be the base grape is, we'll get there, but it's very, very unusual.
It is.
And so why don't you tell us briefly about each winner here, and you pick the order of what made each wine so special, at least and from your standpoint, let alone the judges, and give us some sample pairings that can go with each wine.
Well, I'd like to start with lightest to darkest.
Okay.
I think that's
the good order.
A good order to do it. That would be the Rosato. Typically, wineries will drain the juice right after crush, and it's called saignée. And we did it as well. It boosted the quality of our Sangiovese wines, but we found that we were doing it wrong, that we actually divided up the grapes coming into the winery into size, and the small berries went into the red and all the large berries went into the Rosato. And since doing that, we've been winning awards because of it, and the customers really like it. It's really a full-bodied red in style, but it drinks more like a white. It's a very unique wine.
So what should we enjoy it with? I mean, on its own, probably.
Well, on its own, it is a great afternoon wine. A lot of people grab it before enjoying music in the park. Light snacks, cheese, fruit, things like that. It's just a very delicate wine. Going into the Sangiovese, that is one of our family favorite wines to make and to drink. It is the perfect pairing in anything Italian. So we have.
Well, you do have an Italian heritage.
Yeah, we do.
Sounds like you've nailed it here.
We have it with everything from fettuccine alfredo to pasta bolognese to Italian sausage. It doesn't matter. Osso buco. I mean, it is a wine that goes with everything, and we're not afraid to drink it with everything as well. It's like I said, it's the family favorite. Our Malbec is a recent addition to the estate. I think it was the last one planted in 2005, if I'm not mistaken. We were sort of stealing some Malbec from a neighbor at early 2000s, and we're having a lot of fun making it, and decided that we needed to add it. And it has been gold, double gold every single time. And it's the one, unlike Cabernet, I think, excuse me, it's the one that needs to be paired with big red venison, elk, steak.
The classic pairings,
yeah. That wine has it all going on. When we get to Cabernet, I'll throw you a few curveballs.
Okay.
The Regan Merlot, it's one that we enjoy making. It taught us a lot about making wine, because we grew Merlot for years and could never hold a candle to what Regan produces. And we have a commitment to Merlot, and we've invested a lot in learning about the Regan fruit, and our efforts have paid off with double gold, best in class showings in many recent competitions. And it's the sort of the dark horse. As you know, it has taken a beating in reputation.
Sideways wasn't too good to it in that 2004 movie. Yeah.
Wasn't good to it at all, but we're committed to it, and it's another wine that can pair with just about anything. It's one that we recommend as a go-to if you're unsure, because it doesn't really overpower. It leaves the fruit or the food as the forefront to the meal, whereas the Malbec can be the
it's got the tannins.
Yeah,
in it, yeah.
big and fruity and upfront.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break here. I'm having a great conversation with Greg Perrucci of Perrucci Family Vineyard, and when we come back, we're going to go to the Cabernet with his surprise comments here, perhaps as to pairings, and we're going to talk to him also about the 2021 harvest that he just had, and where to get his wines, and what's his vision for Perrucci Family Vineyard in the next 5 years.
Thank you to the Los Gatos Community Foundation for their continued support of KCAT Public Media. Because of groups like the Los Gatos Community Foundation, KCAT has been able to inspire, educate, entertain, and inform our community through the magic of television and digital media for over 38 years. Thank you.
Okay, we're back now, and we've kind of saved maybe the best for last, because it's your Cabernet, and you've hinted that you might give us a little something here that was out of the ordinary for the perfect pairings.
Well, Cabernet Sauvignon is known as the king of wines in our household. It's my father's favorite, and it is our largest single planting and our largest single production varietal. We do at least 2 different Cabernets. The one we're looking at here that was entered in the competition has a little bit of Malbec and a little bit of Merlot always. It is one of our only varietal wines by name that is blended slightly, and they're very minute amounts. But we do that in order to make the wine a little more food friendly. In fact, a lot more food friendly. And
earlier.
Well,
to some degree.
Typically you would think so, but that wine, I think, is aged 3 or 4 years before it's released. 2017 was released in May of 2021, so 3.5 years. And that's not really why we do it. We do it just to make it less aggressive, less in your face.
Softer, yeah.
Yeah, it softens it. It rounds out those rough edges. And we actually do a pairing with a 100% Cabernet Sauvignon wine, our Reserve Series wine, and we throw most of it on crostini. It's a nice way to deliver different flavors.
Mm-hmm.
And one of our favorites is actually fig and pate,
Oh,
which really brings out the different flavors of the Cabernet. You get those rich currant and dark fruit flavors, as well as that leather and tobacco, coffee notes and things like that. That's one of the things that makes the Cabernet full-bodied, full-flavored. It really pulls it out from beginning to end. And there's a few others. We do a little, it's like a red pepper aioli, has a lot of garlic in it as well, but it's another one that it has a little bitterness to the pepper, and it changes the flavor of the Cabernet. And of course you have the chocolate and things like that,
right,
which
right.
are classics. And then there's beef, but we prefer carpaccio. We prefer it raw
Interesting.
because it changes the flavor completely. And black pepper enhances the notes of the spice in the Cabernet. So it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing to pair different wines or different foods with that wine. And like I said, the pate and fig is the one that really,
Sounds like a crowd pleaser.
it really blows people away. It does.
Well, I hope the microphone is not picking up my stomach growling because you stimulated here in the last few minutes. Okay. Well, let's switch gears a little and, as promised, talk about the most recent vintage of 2021. No wildfires, no smoke.
No smoke, no wildfires, no disease, no bugs. It was a clean vintage. It was a good vintage. It was a light vintage. So quantity-wise, we are going to be at the low end of the spectrum, probably 20-25% off of our average.
So your volume may be down, but will the quality, does that mean the grapes are going to be smaller? Will the intensity of the grape may be more? How's that going to work,
Yes,
the yin and yang?
that's a big part of it. The berries are all going to be smaller and therefore more intense. Hopefully that will translate well across all the varietals. Syrah, we like to have more of an old world style in our Syrah, not that big California jammy. We do that as well, but it's not our favorite style to make. And to do that, we need sort of a larger berry. We may not get that in 2021. The rest of the wines should be okay. But I just wish we had more of it, more fruit.
Okay. Well, you have a lot of varietals in your vineyard there, and I know nothing is typical and whatever, but take me through that last few weeks of what are the steps, what are you doing that leads up to, okay, this is the go time. We've got to be ready to go on the Sangiovese or ready to go on the Malbec or the Merlot. You know, I know that it doesn't all happen at one time, but what are you looking at? Are you doing the stuff with the bricks and the pHs, but are you walking the vineyards and you're popping that grape into your mouth and tasting it? Is there this subjective component to it?
It's all the above. It's the measuring the bricks, measuring the pH, tasting the flavor, crushing the seeds, looking at the color of the seeds, the consistency of the pulp, the thinness of the skin. As the grapes mature, the skin thins a little bit. But flavor is the key component. If it doesn't taste good, it's not ready. You could have the right sugar, you could have the right pH, the seeds could be brown, but if it doesn't taste right, we're not going to harvest it. We have to wait, and hopefully it'll come around to us. But the last couple weeks before harvest, it's a lot of grape eating, definitely.
Okay. And when that harvest arrives, I know it can be, I'm not going to use any bad words on TV or radio, all blank breaks loose there.
Yes, it starts off like a little slow. Usually, we pick a half a ton here and there, and then it hits us full force. The eye of the hurricane happens again in the middle, where it all calms down, and then our Cabernet is always the lag. That's
the last one.
It's always the last one, and everything usually gets in before the Cabernet, and then the hurricane comes around again, eye passes over, and it's all hell breaks loose again.
And you do the crush, etc., and you have the process, the fermentation process. But when do they start going into the barrels? And then what are the barrels that you prefer to use? Is it French oak, New American oak? What do you do?
So it takes at least a week to 2 weeks before the fermentation process is over, and we tend to settle the wine in closed tanks for anywhere from, well, it could be 1 day to 4 or 5 days, just to clean it up. We want to settle out all the solids that we can, and then go right to barrel. And the barrels are typically New American oak and used American oak. We've partnered with Demptos Napa Cooperage for the last probably 15, 16 years, and we've developed a profile with them that we use. And we use it on all of our wines with the exception of our white and rosé wines. Those are all in stainless steel. But we vary the oak impact, if you will, by using more neutral or used barrels, if you will, and time. So the Cabernet, it's a very big, bold wine. It spends 2 to 3 years in mostly new American oak, whereas the Sangiovese, it's a much lighter wine. It might see only a third of the barrels new oak, and then it's probably in the bottle a lot sooner, maybe 18 months in the oak. So it's time and new versus used or spent barrels.
Is there a life expectancy of the barrel, so to speak?
Yeah, it's 2 vintages at least we get out of them. When we do Pinot Noir, we'll actually push it a 3rd vintage to get as much oak impact out of the barrel. So the Pinot Noir goes into almost completely neutral wood. It's a very delicate wine, and we don't want to have the wood influence the wine at all, basically.
Listening to you describe the techniques for farming, let alone post-harvest and whatever, am I correct that you sound more old world than new world or other newfangled things, so to speak?
That is correct. Our goal is to remain true to the varietal's heritage and not make it into something it shouldn't be. I'm not saying that new world wines are bad. They're just not our style. And our fruit is happier in a more of an old world style.
Okay. Well, let's talk about kind of why you're in business, so to speak. How many cases do you average in the last couple of vintages between all the varietals?
Yeah, last few vintages, all varietals, we were, I'm going to say 600 to 700 cases.
Okay.
We have room to grow to about 1,000, 1,050 cases.
Okay. So where can people find your wonderful wines? I know you have your own purchasing through your website online. You have a wine club, stores, restaurants, and for your wine club, you've told me this and we'll repeat it here, you have a special relationship, it appears, with your wine club members, and you have a great party one time a year. Is that correct?
We do. Our harvest festival happens at the end of the year, and it is an event where we, the family, cook and serve a full Italian meal to all of our wine club members. And it's pizzas fresh out of the pizza oven, Italian sausage right off the grill, various salads and homemade breads and cookies and sweets.
And this is on your property?
This is on our property, and it happens up at my father's barbecue patio. It's where the family has Sunday dinner in the summertime. And we take it over with his permission, and my brother, my sister, and our spouses, and our children, and my dad sometimes makes an appearance. My mom used to actually make the pizzas. It all started back when we first planted, where my dad and mom were doing the cooking for all of us while we were working the vineyard, planting the grapes. And it never stopped.
And it's expanded now.
Yeah, it's expanded now, yeah.
Well, so how do you become a wine club member and potentially be part of this great party?
Well, you can go to our website, perruccifamily.com. There's instructions there on how to sign up. It is no cost to join and really no obligation. There's no demands made of you to purchase any minimum number of bottles or anything like that. We trust that you want to be a wine club member and you want what we have to offer, but we will gladly substitute anything you want with whatever we have in the cellar at that time. So if you don't like something that we're offering, just let us know.
You're very flexible, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Our goal is to put the wine you want to drink on your table and not what we want you to drink. Don't let anybody do that to you.
That's a great philosophy. And my take on wine clubs, and my wife would be listening, we belong to too many, but in any event, I have absolute confidence in the conditions under which the wines are stored. Meaning, if you go, no offense to the small, medium, or large big box store, independent, you don't know about sunlight issues, you don't know about temperature issues, you don't know about handling issues. You guys treat them like they're your babies, and there's no outside negative factors.
Right, that's correct. I mean, the other thing that we get out of it, not only do we know that the wine is going to people that appreciate us for who we are and our story and what we're doing, but we get to know the wine club members and we get to actually interact with them. If our wine was sold at a retailer someplace, we would never know who's purchasing the wine, who's enjoying our wine, who's not. We get that direct feedback. So it's a good thing for us, and we're happy to give the discount direct to the wine club member instead of giving it to the retailer. No offense to the retailer, but
right.
But for us, we want to get to know you, the customer.
You establish a connection with each, and they're more than customers. It sounds like you treat them like family or friends or whatever.
We do call it our family of wine club members, and family's a big part of who we are. It's on every bottle. That's all our employees. They're all family at all these events.
So you've got that option, and then there's a regular online sales that you could make on your website. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is there a wine store or whatever that any...
From time to time, you may find us in a local wine shop here in Los Gatos or a restaurant. It's hit and miss, so I really don't think it's a good idea to say where we are or might be, because it changes, and it's not our first choice. You can go to our website and you can see what we have to offer. Wine club members have a greater selection. We have a whole reserve series of wines that are not offered to the general public. But if you come to a tasting, you may find a bottle of reserve wines open that
will tempt you.
And you can join the club at that time.
Okay, great. That sounds great. Well, last question before we close it out, and this is something that maybe you've thought about, maybe you haven't. But what's your vision for Perrucci Family Vineyard in the next 5 years? Where do you want them to go? Stay where you are? Do you want to expand? What's out there on the horizon?
Well, we've left my nephew Alec a couple hundred cases of room to grow, and he's sort of given free rein to fill that with almost anything he wants, as long as it meets our high standards of quality. But I think it'll take him 2, 3, 4 years to fill that, and then who knows? We don't know where it'll go after that.
Well, it sounds like you've got a good game plan, and you've got a good situation here with Alec, and not only you and your brother involved, but it sounds like things are going for sure in the right direction. And this is not the first time you've won awards. This goes back decades. Yes. So keep up the good work. And you know what? All this talk about wine, I think I'm gonna go home and open a bottle out. Thank you for being on the show, Greg.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure being here.
Good to see you.